Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar where we'll be talking with Abby Bangser, the platform working group lead at CNCF, about how to optimize throughout the platform engineering maturity model. Hello, Abby.
Hello, thanks for having me on.
How are you today? It's great to have you.
Yeah, doing well. It's the late afternoon here or early evening here in the UK. So hello from different time zones. I think I see some people I might know out there in the attendees from very different time zones. So good to see you all.
Yeah, thanks for joining us from wherever you are at whatever time of day you are now. So let's start with a small introduction, Abby. So I already said you're the platform working group lead at CNCF, but you also do other things. Tell us a bit about yourself.
I do. So I work with the platforms working group, along with a couple of other leads, Robert and Josh, and an amazing set of humans from different organizations that I'll tell more about as we get into things. But I do a lot of things around the community. So I'm also a team topologies advocate, and I run a meetup in London that's also partially virtual. That does coffee ops conversations, trying to get people just talking more and interacting and collaborating more around software delivery. And the thing that lets me keep doing all of that while also having a roof over my head is that I work for a great startup called Syntasso. We build Cradix, which is a framework for delivering platforms that allow you to customize to your business while also providing that on-demand self-service experience that we all have gotten used to in cloud computing. So yeah,
So it's platforms all around for you.
it is.
Okay, cool. So a few words about me. I'm Anton, or as folks call me, Ant Weiss. I've been in this industry for a couple of decades now, and I've done all kinds of things from development and through configuration management and then DevOps. And right now, I'm a chief storyteller at Perfect Scale, bringing the message of Kubernetes optimization to the folks all around the world. And of course, we're talking a lot about platforms. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, about how to optimize throughout the platform engineering maturity model. Why is it interesting to us? Well, mainly because Kubernetes has become the foundation for many of the internal delivery platforms that we're building today, and because basically platforms are the way our industry is moving forward. And for that, Abby, you're the expert, so I'll let you say a few words.
Yeah, I think that what's really interesting with the CNCF working group is Kubernetes is definitely a part of the Cloud Native Computing Foundation, or the CNCF. It's obviously the founding project within that. So it's a connective tissue between all of the participants in that group. Absolutely. But what we find is that Kubernetes is often only one piece of the puzzle. But what is really exciting about Kubernetes is the API and the level of familiarity and the level of power it can provide is actually, and the fact that it is fairly ubiquitous in many organizations somewhere. It may not be your main platform, but you're going to have that somewhere. It provides you now more and more opportunities to manage non-Kubernetes aspects of your estate from that Kubernetes API to have a consistent interface. So you're seeing that with projects like Crossplane that does the infrastructure as code across cloud compute and off like SaaS products and on-prem and things like that. My product Cradix can work across your whole estate. We have people working with on-prem proprietary software through to the edge computing and so on and so forth. And we're just seeing that more and more with Dapper, where it's that developer experience layer. So what does it look like to provide software applications with the underlying plugs that they need, so secrets and data access, without the software developers having to think about it so much. And everyone's finding ways to provide those kinds of capabilities on and off Kubernetes, which is really exciting. So
Yeah, it's like, folks are always saying that the best thing about Kubernetes is its flexible and extensible API. that allows us to model basically anything we want to do in platforms. So yeah, definitely cross-plane, Dapper, Gradix. There's also this interesting open source project called KCP, I think, which just takes the control plane of Kubernetes and allows you to reuse it for basically anything. Okay, so what we're talking today about is optimizing throughout the platform engineering maturity model. So we'll talk about the model a bit later, but first let's define what optimization is, shall we?
Yeah, I mean, optimization is something that I think we all throw around. There's a lot of terms I find in work, let alone in technology, that we use, and it actually can be quite diverse in application, depending on your context, depending on your company, depending on your team, your focus. And optimization, I think, is one of them. I definitely have this like perception that when someone talks about optimization as a software engineer, my first reaction is performance. It's got to be performance, right? But then my operations brain kicks in and I'm like, oh no, it's probably cost. I've gone through those years of cutting back the cost of cloud computing and things like that. I'm like, no, it's got to be reliability. We're optimizing for reliability and access and resilience and those things. And all of a sudden you start pulling on this term of optimization, and at least for me, I realize that what I first think of is often not the full picture. And it could include things like eco impact. So what's the environmental impact, and can we optimize for lower impact on carbon and things like that? Lot of conversations today are around developer experience optimizations. So how can you lower cognitive load, optimize for increased flow state, optimize for output and focus of those developers. And part of that's just in general employee happiness, optimizing for lower stress and more ability to just kind of do your job and do it well through autonomy and enablement and things like that. So yeah, I think with optimization, it's a really interesting conversation because it's something that is inherently an improvement on where you are. And there's all sorts of layers to where you are today, and therefore all sorts of things that you can be thinking about optimizing at any given time.
Yeah, definitely. And taking us back to the core DevOps principles, continuous improvement, continuous optimization is back there coming to us from the lean software development. Is definitely something we're striving to do.
Yeah, and I think what you're saying there, sorry, just to add to that, it's very smart what you were saying is like it's it's the state of perpetually improving, and B, it's the fact that you can never stop because there is no done state. Optimizing, there may be a time and a place where the cost to improve is not worth the benefit you would get from that improvement. And so therefore you make a conscious choice to say, we're good enough now. But there's always something you can do to improve things. And it's that balance of figuring out the cost value of those improvements on deciding when to apply optimizations and how to apply those optimizations.
Right. And also, as we continue building our systems, they're getting more and more complex, and we continue acquiring technical debt. So it's a game against entropy.
Yeah,
that's never ending. Okay, so a few words about how we see people go about optimization in their systems.
Yeah, that's what we were just saying, is that people can choose the way they implement their optimizations based on the cost value they're hoping to receive, right? So I've been in many scenarios where my optimizations are done through what I might describe as more manual or kind of reactive scenarios. So for example, I worked in an organization that our cost optimizations for the cloud, given our scale, given our risk profiles and things like that, were to put on a warning if our bill went too much higher than we expected on a given month. But in general, at the end of every month, we had a calendar invite. We took a dump of the information and we reviewed it, and we tried to figure out if there was anything starting to rise that we wanted to optimize for the cost. And this was not very repeatable. It was not even very consistent. So sometimes those meetings would come and go, and we wouldn't actually do anything about it that month. But it did catch some things. It did enable us to do some cost optimizations, and so there was that. So I think manual and and reactive is one end of the spectrum. And then maybe the other end of the spectrum is more proactive and also more automated aspects to this. So how can you project the expected cost so that you essentially use that sort of burn down idea of where the costs are coming from? And how can you make sure that you don't have to worry about a human who might be on vacation one day getting involved, but instead doing so in an automated way? And I think we're going to talk more about examples as we go, but those tend to be the two ends of the spectrum, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And that's taken us back to the platform engineering maturity model, because that's basically what happens throughout the model. You start with, manual and ad hoc processes, and then as you continue growing and evolving your platform, you go more and more into automated processes where things just happen, and you continue optimizing, and then platform eventually, hopefully, starts to optimize itself.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And by the way, if you're watching us on Zoom, there's a poll we're currently running, so we'd like to get your inputs on that. And also, we have questions. You can ask questions on LinkedIn Live and on Zoom, and we'll be happy to answer those in the end. So yeah, definitely. Ask anything you want to ask. Okay, and we're coming back to the maturity model. So a few words. What's the background there? What did it originate from?
Yeah, so I think we talked a bit about the fact that one of the hats I wear is as a co-lead of the platforms working group within the CNCF. That working group is a really interesting collection of people with a very exciting mission. And the mission is basically to try and support people who are viewing platforms as one aspect of helping app delivery be successful. So that idea of taking an application from software code being written through to it being a scaled deployment for your organization, getting kind of benefit out to the org. And platforms has emerged from the higher level concept of app delivery, has become its own working group. And the first thing that we set out to do was to release a white paper describing the kind of big picture idea of what a platform can be when it comes to software delivery, and what are some of the challenges and some of the goals of it. This white paper was released in time for KubeCon last spring, that was in Amsterdam, so sort of April 2023. And we immediately got a ton of great interest on that. And so that interest proved to us that this was a conversation people were concerned about or like interested by, and interested by in particular to try and connect that high level, C-level kind of mindset with the engineering teams, the more kind of senior engineers, principals, and things like that were thinking about the implementation. And one of the things we realized as a group, and you can see some of the amazing companies that have representatives in this group, and this is, I don't think everybody, but it's a good representative of the 50 plus people who participate in writing these papers. We have people from end user companies, so companies that make no money off of platform engineering, but they require it to be successful. We have representatives of consulting companies where they will support organizations in doing platform engineering. And we of course have vendors, which again, I'm one of as a project maintainer. And it's that combination of those three that really give us that well-rounded view. And so when we put our heads together and thought, okay, people are excited by the idea, how do we now help them more? The maturity model came about because we wanted to help people connect that lofty idea, that lofty goal, with their own current state, and help them design a path forward so that they could get those benefits in the white paper, no matter where they were on their own platform engineering journey. And that's how we came up with the idea of a maturity model and released that.
Okay. Yeah, it was definitely needed. And well, we won't go into explaining the model. It would take a whole separate webinar to do that. and I'm sure you've had those talks. And of course, folks, we expect you to go and read the white paper and read the document outlining the model. So we'll just pull up a slide that describes the 4 stages of the maturity that the model describes, being, the provisional, the operational, scalable, and optimizing. And what we are talking about today is about how to apply optimization throughout the model, because, if you look at the model, it looks like only the last stage is about optimization because it's called optimizing. But we do realize that optimization is a never-ending game. So we start doing it manually originally, right, in an ad hoc manner, and then we continue with that. So I'd love to get your inputs, Abby, on how you see this applicable throughout all the different stages.
Yeah, I think that you called out optimizing is in this unfortunate category where it is both a stage of that your platform might enter, while also being a capability, just like observability might be, or something else, which you're going to have some implementation of at all levels. And so when you're talking about optimizing whether that be cost or performance or eco impact or employee health and happiness and developer experience, what you're talking about is what is the level of investment to the level of return at each level, at each stage of this maturity model. And I know we're not going to get deep into this, but just for those that haven't opened the link yet, this is like a 12-page paper or 10-page paper, and the first page or so describes why there's 4 levels and why they are not about racing to the top of them. It's because each of these describes the level of investment and value you probably need given your context. So as I've talked about some of my past jobs, I've worked in early stage startups before, and in those early stage startups, the idea of getting to a scalable internal platform would be almost laughable, because not only do we not need it, it would actually be detrimental to the future of the company if we burned our entire runway on trying to figure out how to scale to millions of users when we hadn't yet found even hundreds of users for that platform or for that product. So provisional is not meant to be offensive to anybody. It is meant to indicate that the stage that you're at in your platform, the value you're getting from your platform, is going to be more ad hoc in nature. So from an optimization point of view, it looks like that kind of email reminder, calendar reminder on a monthly basis to check your costs. Or it might look like running a scan every once in a while for excess resources in Kubernetes by opening up a Grafana dashboard to check for what pods have more resources than they actually need. But doing that sort of when somebody remembers or whatever. But that might be the exact value that you need. But that is the value you get at provisional. So you might have to think about, should you be moving up a level?
Okay. So, and what happens when we do move up a level? What happens at the operational stage?
So you said that's not enough. Why might you have said that? You might have said that because your team is growing, your users are growing, your expectations on consistency are growing, consistency and scale are growing. And so what you need is you need to operationalize things. You need to be able to trust in what you're building is repeatable, and you need to trust that it is also iteratable, but it's not a word, that you can improve on it. Iterable, there you go. That you can improve on it because the design behind it is improvable in nature. So that's where you get to operational. Now you want to start thinking about things that may not be full automation, but it is things where you're starting to have consistency. So for example, you might be investing in getting consistent labels across all of your cloud resources to be able to track those costs and those usages across things. You may be investing in visualization models that can allow for you to more quickly identify problems and possibly even alert on them. And you may start talking about process that is going to be more consistent. So if you ever use definition of done, as in when is a new feature shipped and complete, it may include a focus on optimizing certain aspects of your requirements as a part of every feature that you ship. So that's where you're starting to get to with operationals. A lot of process starting to form and be consistent.
Yeah, basically that's where you start getting some understanding of what's that thing that we're doing, and maybe you start realizing that the provisional doesn't cut it anymore. You need to start, getting aligned on stuff in order
Exactly.
to actually handle the inefficiencies.
Hmm.
Okay, and then probably you realize that you're growing faster than you thought, and you need to go to the next level, right?
Yeah, so scaled hits you when humans are your human time and energy and mistakes and things are your biggest bottleneck. And if you've ever spoken about or been involved in SRE, you will have maybe heard about the nines. So 3 nines, 4 nines, 5 nines level of like reliability. And this is a really easy way to think about when you might need to move from operational to scalable. And that's because when you look at those like nines or how much uptime you might have, there's a point at which having a human involved inherently means you can have zero mistakes. So if you're allowed less than a minute of downtime a month, the minute anything goes wrong, if a human has to be involved, you're over a minute. You're over a minute. So you have to
Humans are
automate
slow.
everything. Yeah. Okay, let me put it this way. You're over a minute if I'm involved, because that's how much time it takes for me to get my drink of coffee and have to go figure out what button to click, right? So so that's the thing. And the same thing goes for any other optimizations. There's a point at which the value you're looking for is at a speed and a scale that it physically cannot be supported by a human, or the cost to have the number of humans you need to support it in the way of support teams isn't reasonable. So really scalable, what you're hammering home is the automation around things. And that's where you're seeing it on this list. You're starting to see things like self-service solutions. So no longer relying on that human supporting users, the users can support themselves. You're starting to talk about centrally enabled operations. So instead of trying to like keep a checklist of who's completed their migration is being done by some sort of an orchestrator or operator, something automatically internally. And that's applied to optimizing as much as anything else.
Hmm. And that's also where we start gathering much more data in order to understand where we need to get better and
Yeah.
where to put our attention to.
Yeah.
Okay, and then hopefully we've been able to scale, and now we're in that stage where we go into that blissful state of continuous optimization, right? That's the optimizing stage.
Yeah. And I think just to like reiterate that with this model, I know maturity models, a lot of people have some scar tissue there. I'm a recovering consultant myself, so like I get it. They can be used for evil. And it's part of why we really as a group that wrote this fought hard for this to be something that practitioners wanted to apply to themselves and felt comfortable bringing to the table, and not something they felt like could be used to sort of berate a team to a certain degree. And so while optimizing is the furthest right and therefore arguably the best and where you want to get to, then this entire webinar is about the fact that you are going to be optimizing your capabilities throughout this whole process. When we get to this fourth level, it's about optimizing the platform offering around that. So what does it mean? It means that you are no longer gatekeeping that platform. You have created a kind of environment which enables that to grow organically within the expectations and the requirements of your organization. So that's where we talk about the ecosystem of platforms, and we talk about it being participatory with its users and adoption, and services being integrated into wherever your users are working. And that's true for optimization as well. Like, for example, I've seen some really great tools that are in IDEs when you're writing infrastructure as code, and can elevate to you how much that infrastructure as code is going to cost you per month once it's created. Oh, wait, what? Oh my gosh, I put terabytes instead of gigabytes. Backspace, backspace, gigabytes. Okay, my cost is now within reason, right? So those kinds of integrated services and integrated capabilities is where we're starting to talk about with platforms in the optimizing stage.
Yeah. One additional point that I'm always thinking of, while you're building a platform, you're basically acquiring tech debt because you're building the platform so that your delivery process gets better, but while doing that, you're also you're taking some time and effort and cost as a debt. And then at the optimizing stage, that's when you start repaying that debt in order to actually reap the benefits that the platform is supposed to give you.
Yeah. And I think you're paying some of that debt down at each of the levels, to be fair, or you're identifying which debt holds you back from achieving the level, right? So there'll be debt that holds you back from being able to be operational, and there will be debt that holds you back from being able to be scalable, particularly manual steps, right? And then there will be additional debt though where you kind of gotten past it. And now you're kind of finally at the stage where that's where your priorities are, is just those kind of optimizations, right? They can be more targeted in nature. So
yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, definitely some debt to repay on each stage. Cool. Wonderful. Okay, by the way, we have some poll results coming in, and well, folks, we see most folks are either at provisional or operational stage. At least that's where they see themselves at. And some are saying they haven't started yet, and nobody said they're at optimizing stage yet, and only 9% are at scalable. So yeah, we still have a long way to go.
And that maps with I think a couple things. So first of all, that maps with my experience in the working group. When we knew we'd really hit on something with this maturity model is we had a number of end user companies proudly self-identifying as either provisional or operational, with seeing the things that they had been advocating their company invest in be the things that could help them get to the next level. And now they could put words and actions behind that, right? So we started to see that people weren't embarrassed to say they were provisional, and they were seeing value in that move. The other thing, and that it was quite common to be at provisional and operational, even when you're as engaged as being a part of this working group, right? The other thing I think it maps with is the industry. Look, there are only so many of these like mega companies out there that need to be at the like most mature level of anything, right? There are way more companies out there that are just trying to figure things out, trying to find the right customer base and doing those things. And so I would be surprised, and I would wonder if it was a failure of the maturity model if we ever get to the stage where we are over 50% in optimizing as an industry. Like, it just doesn't feel right for the types of companies, the diversity of companies we have in the world. So yeah, this is really cool to see that the group here today is aligned with what we've seen in the working group and just in the industry at large. So
Yeah, definitely. There's also a question here from Scott that says, is there a document that describes these transition pressures? When should we consider transitioning from left to right on this table?
that is a great question. So we don't have anything formal yet, but that is on the sort of list of things that might be a really valuable next set of projects within the working group. What I would say is, so far from feedback from people who've used the maturity model, what people start, if you read the document and you read where you are in any one of these categories, and just to be clear, you can be kind of operational on investment, but your adoption could still be provisional. Like, you're not one column at a time. So go find where you are on this model, go read the section of where you are, and validate, do you think those are kind of the experiences you're feeling? And then what I would recommend is read the next one, because the next one up, and basically evaluate, do you think that is something that you need? Do you think those kind of experiences and styles of interaction and things is what you need or not? And you can sort of apply it that way. And I get that that's not maybe quite as approachable as something else. And so definitely hearing you and something I can bring back to the working group, another vote for that kind of piece of work. But the paper is very much written in a sense of like, point in time. If you are operational when it comes to adoption, and you have an extrinsic push kind of style at your company, here is what you are seeing. Here are some of the strains you might be feeling, and here are some of the benefits you might be getting. Now go to the next one, and it's point in time. Now imagine you're scalable. Here's what you'd be feeling. Here's what some of the challenges you'd be feeling, might be feeling. Here's what some of the benefits you might be getting, and you can kind of hopefully self-evaluate that a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, and of course, as you already said, it's very important to remember it's just a model, and you won't probably find yourself fitting exactly into any one of the columns here. But yeah, this is just something that will help you evaluate yourself. Okay, another question from Scott again. Would it be valuable to a working group for us to provide feedback on the process you just recommended?
Yes. Yes. So first of all, it's valuable to us to hear anything in any context and way that people want to share. So you can find me in a whole bunch of Slacks and a whole bunch of social medias. I'm in CNCF Slack, Platform Engineering Slack, Kubernetes Slack, as well as Blue Sky, Twitter, LinkedIn, all the things. Find me and ping me directly. But what I'd
Yeah.
even more hope or recommend is come join the group. We have a CNCF Slack channel called WG Platforms that has some amazing conversations going on in it. And we also have a repository in GitHub that is under the group CNCF, and the project is the WG platforms again, and there are issues there that you can open with comments, with questions, and with pull requests as well. So there's all sorts of opportunities for you to share back, and we really encourage it. And that's how we end up with such a diverse group of opinions and great outcome usually. So.
And we're now discussing having a booth for the platforms group at KubeCon, right?
Yeah, so KubeCon, if you're going to be in Paris, well, if you're not going to be in Paris, I really hope you can get there. And if you are going to be in Paris, we have an entire inaugural platform engineering day that is happening on Tuesday. It's going to be a jam-packed day with some amazing speakers and content there. We're also going to be having morning coffees. So these are going to be facilitated lean coffees where we're going to have a bit of coffee, a bit of OJ and pastry. So that's how we get you in. But also just to talk about whatever people want to talk about. So lean coffee is how I host my meetup in London as well. You just put your ideas and questions on a sticky, and we talk about the most popular ones and see where we get to. So that'll be every morning. And the Tag App Delivery is going to have a booth I think all 3 days, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, for at least parts of the day. And we're going to be doing end user interviews about what your platforms are like. If you want to get involved in that, please reach out, and as well as just being around to answer questions and talk to people about how to get involved.
Yeah, all the, and we have another answer coming in, a question coming in. So Jacob is asking, which aspect do you think is the hardest one to advance on in a large organization? So basically, what challenges, what are the largest challenges we're seeing, right?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Jacob. So I think there's a few. So first of all, I think that getting to the level of scalable, and particularly to optimizing, is what we're seeing both in our poll here today as well as in the industry as the hard part. And I think there's some tooling issues there. So I think we're going to be improving on that as an industry with tools coming out to support. But it's also where we're not great as engineers at talking about the value we provide internally to an organization, right? So we're just now really driving home this idea of developer experience. And I already think we're losing the plot. It's like we're going back to 2000 and we're talking about offices are cool because they have a ping pong table. That's the way that we're talking about developer experience, when really what we all know is what makes employee happiness is autonomy and the ability to do your job and respect and flexibility when you need it and things like that. Not a ping pong table, not beer in the fridge, right? And I think we're doing the same thing. I fear that we're doing the same thing with developer experience. We're talking about how to make it cool and hip, more so than just low friction and like, easy for people and that kind of thing. So Yeah, so I think that where we're seeing a lot of challenges is I think that move from a dedicated team to as product under the investment aspect, because people don't see a product for other software engineers as anything other than a technical thing. They see it as, it's not a product, it's write some code. Give them some templates. Here's some Terraform modules. Here's some Helm charts, right? When you truly treat it like a product and you make it optional and you have a product manager who is thinking about user experience, those things are difficult to get ingrained often. I think the other thing, yeah, I think I love this diagram. Thank you, Ant, for putting it up. This is really talking to that idea of interfaces, and this is another one that I think is a challenge for people. Is this idea that platforms are not about making the operators' lives easier. They're about making the users' lives easier and the operators' lives easier, both. But right now, we're so proud of ourselves when we figure out how to make our operators' lives easier, and we spent so much sweat equity on that. We often don't have a lot of energy left to think about the fact that our implementation is not the same thing as a user interface. And we kind of stop at this level of facilitation here. So why I love this diagram is it talks about the fact that we can't just go straight to automation. We can't just assume we know how people want to work and hand them over something. We have to collaborate with people, discover what it is that they need and want and how we can provide them benefit. We need to start to see if that solution that we come up with a single team can be evolved to being something that we can work with a number of teams on, and then we can start to establish those automation and self-service interfaces. And so that move from kind of standard tooling, so Terraform modules that everyone can rely on, or Helm charts that people can include, or things like that, to truly self-service managed services is, I think, something that is also quite a difficult move for people, because it's hard to get past that. It's a techie solution for techies. Look, I wrote HCL code. But your JavaScript devs don't want to be looking at that, and probably don't need to be, depending on what size organization you are. So
Yeah. In a way, again, this is like you're just taking me back to the core ideas of DevOps, which is was originally, devs thinking more like ops and ops thinking more like devs. So each group starts with understanding the other group's concerns, and that's how we make stuff better, and that's how we make our work environment better, and that's how our software delivery becomes better.
And we get that question all the time around, like, is platform engineering instead of DevOps? And I know you'll hear that around many places, but in my opinion, DevOps is a way of working, and therefore they are very compatible together. And even more so, what I think is a nice way of thinking about things is that DevOps requires a fair amount of that early part of that last diagram we're looking at. DevOps is huge on that sort of discovery, high human-to-human collaboration aspect, right? You're putting together someone who understands the infrastructure with someone who understands the software application in the same room, solving problems. That's really hard to scale. And it's even harder when you start thinking about all the other specialties you need, like security and database expertise and things like that. And so you start having to figure out how to centralize some of those ideas when you get to a scale where you've got 50 or 100 or more software engineering teams. And I believe that platform engineering is the way that you scale that idea of enabling DevOps as a practice and as a principle. You take the things that have been established as contracts, established as things where you can draw that API, that interface between two teams, and you automate that and you push that down into a managed service that is custom to your organization. And that is your platform, enabling the teams to now build from a higher point of view, right? That's what a platform is a higher point at which to start. So so that whole which one is it? I think it's both. So
I think this was a wonderful summary of all the topics we were talking about today. Thanks, Abby. So, folks, as you probably saw today, optimization has many faces. And maybe this is a good place to mention that this has been brought to you by Perfect Scale, that allows you to optimize your Kubernetes clusters in an easy and automated way. So definitely take a look at that. Abby, it was great having you. So
Thank you so much.
you're so knowledgeable in this topic, and you have so much passion for platforms. It was real fun.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure to talk about this stuff and hopefully get a few more recruits for the working group. We really love having new voices and hearing new perspectives and folding that into this kind of shared vision that we can build. So yeah.
Yeah, we definitely, as we saw, we still have a long way to go, and yeah, we need as many contributors as possible to move forward as an industry. Definitely.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you everybody, and have a great time of day.
Bye all.